Alright, hello. I'm doing a little bit of an interview format for this video, or I suppose you could call it a vlog. But yeah, so I'm just going to dive into some of the questions we have here to answer. So the first major question that we have to hit is where my thinking was at the start of the semester and where it is now on a lot of the topics that we covered. And I think it's fair to say that I've come out of this class a lot more open-mindedly than I entered it. I didn't really expect human relations to be an interesting experience. I expected it to be, this is how you interact with your students. This is how you interact with people who are above you on your job ladder. I didn't come into this class expecting much. But every single day, I came away thinking about the topic that we talked about. We started the class with that Simon Sinek video, and that just kind of made me step back and think, okay, what kind of class am I really in? Where are we going with this? And how am I going to deal with that? How is that important to me? What impact does it have on my life? And I think that's the very essence of the class, is that the class is meant to make you think. Not just about yourself, but about the way you interact with others and the way those interactions affect you and your life. So, diversity. Diversity is a great topic to start with here. Diversity was like a week one thing. We had a couple of articles about it. Diversity has always been kind of a non-topic for me, I suppose, because my life experiences with diversity, I went to a mostly white high school, but when I was young, my three closest friends were black, of Hispanic descent, and Filipino. So I was friends with people from all sorts of cultures. It was kind of weird to finally get later into high school and arrive at a point where all of my friends looked like me and had my same, well, not exactly the same, but about the same culture as me. Diversity was always just kind of a given, I guess. My parents didn't really talk to me about diversity. It didn't really become a big issue in my life for a long time until finally at school we covered diversity and it made me actually think about it. I think the class itself has made me think a little bit more about what diversity means to us as a society, as opposed to what it means in reflection to my life. Because diversity is this really difficult thing for Americans to grasp for some reason. When we're literally, all of us are immigrants. All of us. We're all of immigrant descent. Almost, unless you have a Native American ancestor, none of us were born here. All of us are immigrants. So you would think that America would be the ideal place for diversity to flourish. Lots and lots of people of different cultures, lots and lots of mixing of ideas, lots and lots of acceptance. But there's not. We just kind of ignore each other's cultures. We barely ever interact with them, and when we do, it's on the basis level. We'll borrow, holidays or stories or what have you. All sorts of things. But we don't interact with their culture. We don't want to know about their culture. We don't want to know about their religion. We don't want to hear about the way that their parents talk to them. We don't want to dive deep. And I think that's kind of tragic and something that needs to be addressed more in America and in class and in our future as educators. I think we have to make it a priority because nobody else is going to do it. If it's kind of King's concept. We can't ask other people to be non-conforming if we're not going to do it. We have to take the initiative. We have to make the effort. We have to be the good neighbor. We have to enforce diversity in our classroom. We have to find ways to teach people about the different cultures they're living around, because otherwise they'll never be able to get along with them. From week 2, my favorite topic, I think, was civic literacy. And that's because civic literacy ties in really well with both mindfulness and King's concepts from the books. Because King was pushing for peaceful protest and social change through that medium. And civic literacy is about taking action civically. If you don't agree with something the government is doing, we don't riot. It's you picket, you protest, you go out and stand in the street somewhere with a sign, you vote people in who are going to push your ideas to Congress. You call your congressman if he's doing something that you disagree with. You get involved. And I think there's a big issue in America today, and I guess that the issue was somewhat less so before the class, but there's a big issue in America today where young people don't vote. We just don't. And I think the tragedy here is that we often have the new ideas. We have the power to shape our future by voting in people who will push our new ideas to the masses. But because we don't have a voting body, because we weren't taught civic literacy, we weren't taught to be involved civically, we don't vote. So our ideas don't get out there, and we get things like Donald Trump getting elected. Cough, cough. That being said, the things we have to do to change that, I think, are very much on the shoulders of us that are going to be educators. Because we have to make the push in our school districts for that change. It's not going to come from the top. Because there are probably people out there who are quite invested in the older voting base, keeping their voice the strongest voting base. So we have to be the catalyst for change. And I think mindfulness calls us to take a step back and focus on the problems in the present. And I think that's one of the present problems that we can address when everyone's more mindful. It's really easy to go about your day and not think about the problems that are touching other people and just think about your own stuff. But King calls us to be a good neighbor, to put ourselves out there, to be altruistic and do things for other people, not ask what happens to me if I help this person. Ask what happens to that person if I don't help them. And I think the sad answer to that question in this case is that until the older generation quite literally dies off, the younger generation will have no political say. Because we don't have civic literacy. We don't have people that know how to vote. We don't have people that know that they can go vote for governor or for seats in their local Congress. We don't emphasize that. The third week, I picked disabilities as my particular topic because disabilities are a difficult topic to get around socially in general. We don't really mess with we don't really mesh with people with disabilities. We've created this case where people with disabilities are sort of social outcasts. People don't want to be around them. People don't want to make the effort to get to know them because we're afraid of things that are different. And that sort of entrenched xenophobia is really dangerous, I think, because it leads to a lot of misinformation. We don't think about those people as people, really. We think about people with disabilities as their disability. Oh, that's the autistic kid. Oh, that's the kid that can't speak a full sentence without stuttering. We have people with disabilities get looked down upon, and I think that there's a call as we grow up and are the voices in control to make changes to the way our kids and kids of our classrooms, that people with disabilities are still people. That, yeah, that kid looks a little different than you and talks a little different than you and maybe can't always be in the same sports, in the same music classroom as you, or doesn't learn math the same way as you, or, you could go on and on. But I think it's important that we instill understanding at a young age, because while we've made great strides in the past, couple decades on the topic, I don't think disabilities are handled well. I don't think as a society we accept people with disabilities as people. And I wanted to talk a little bit, I suppose, now about things that we can do to push these ideas. And I think my favorite thing was one of the early articles, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, talked a lot about experiential learning. I think it was like how we beat prejudice in the modern age or something like that. And it discussed how the best way to be entrenched in diversity, in different cultures, in different people, is to experience them, to go out and talk to them, to go, to interact with these people in person and get to realize, oh, we have differences, we have different beliefs, but they're still people. They're still human beings, and our differences don't divide us. And as I've already said on civil literacy and disabilities, we have to get these concepts out early, like real early. We need to be talking like grade school. These things need to be part of the curriculum. Like, we cannot change our society from the old people. The old people are entrenched. They've learned their stuff. They're not going to change. The old people get to stay around until they get old and die. But the next generation still has a chance to be more accepting, to be better at human relations as a whole, to be kinder. And I think that it's our job, our responsibility, to educate the next generation better, because I don't feel like we got that. I'd like to talk a little bit about the two books, I suppose, now, and kind of the differing perspectives, the different ways that they look at the world. And I say different ways, but really, they're pretty similar. I think that Kane's perspectives on the world and Ryan's perspectives on the world mesh really well. Mindfulness itself is a great tool for a lot of the things that King calls us to do. Because when we're mindful and we know where we are emotionally, we have a better position for emotional connection to others. We have a better chance for empathy. We can think clearer. We can make rational decisions. We can have the tough mind and the tender heart that King's early chapters called us to do. And Ryan's perspective comes... I think the only major differences in their perspective is really the audience, I guess, they're shooting at. King is talking to he's talking to people from a pulpit, literally. These are sermons. And he's talking to mostly black congregations, people of color. So the time at which these sermons were written, he's talking to a very oppressed group of people. And Ryan is not really talking from that same position. So the shift, I guess, from King's to Ryan's is they're both trying to better society, but they're trying to better a different society. King is trying to better the people in his congregation. He's trying to set them up with the proper mindset to make change in the world. And Ryan is trying to get people to be mindful, to take a moment and relax and feel themselves and make better decisions in order to change our current society that isn't quite as oppressed, but that he knows can get better if we can pick up these practices. As a whole, I think that mindfulness fits into a lot of these topics, and as do King's concepts in a lot of his sermons. We need to be a good neighbor. We need to have a tough mind and a tender heart so that we can push diversity and help people with disabilities or the LGBT community, or we need to be able to relate to people on an emotional level that goes beyond skin color or culture or creed. And I think mindfulness is the vehicle that gets us there. Mindfulness opens our mind to think clearer, to make rational decisions, to empathize, to connect to people. And I think that is why these two books are part of the course. I think that's the core of the course, is what does this mean for the world, and why is it important, and why does it matter to me? And I think the two books are the most important part of the course because they answer those questions so cleanly. Mindfulness matters because it literally opens your mind and body to new things. It allows you to take a step back, to manage your emotions, to learn better, to accept new information and new people better. And King's concepts all encompass a change of mindset that allows us to be more open to new people. Together, they're a revolutionary sort of idea that puts us in a place to better relate to human beings. And I think that's the magic of this course, is that at the ground level, some people might say that we learned very little in this course. We didn't, I'm not coming away from this with a new, I didn't learn the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. I didn't learn a new way to do math. I didn't learn a new way to write a story. I didn't learn how to give a speech, obviously. But we've all come away from this class with a new way of thinking about other people and learning how to connect with them. That's why it's important. Because out there today, we don't connect with people well enough. Simon Sinek said it. We are getting more afraid of each other, more reclusive. We are getting cut off. We are fostering depression and anxiety and people who are literally afraid to socially interact. And this class is all about learning who you are as a person, how you relate to the world, and how you can help the rest of the world relate to each other. No wonder it's an education class, honestly. I actually can't think of anything better to teach teachers then how to relate to people, because you're literally shaping the next generation. And I think if we can pass the tools that we've gained in this class onto the next generation, we will have quite possibly the best prepared generation for accepting things, for being open and diverse and honest with each other that we have ever had. Quite literally, we could usher in the golden age of human relations. And I think that's pretty damn cool. And with that, I think I've run out of talking space.